Have you ever wondered why some digital classrooms just pop with energy and engagement, while others, well, they just fall flat? Today, we're going to crack open a new academic study that has some really surprising answers about what's going on.
Think about it. Schools and universities are pouring tons of money into the latest edtech. Virtual labs, interactive whiteboards, the whole shebang. But that leads to this huge question. If the technology is so advanced, why are students still zoning out? It's a massive frustration for so many educators. And this analogy just hits the nail on the head, right? It's not about just owning the super-fast Formula One car. It's about having a trained driver and a strategy to actually win the race. The potential of these digital tools is incredible, but it's totally locked away without the right game plan.
So, to get some real answers, we're diving into a 2025 study that looked specifically at science education in private universities in Jordan. They really wanted to figure out what actually makes a difference when it comes to technology in the classroom.
So what they do? Well, the method was pretty straightforward but really smart. They went right to the source and surveyed 158 people who were on the front lines, the educators and administrators, using these digital tools day in and day out.
And you can see they didn't just talk to one type of person. They got a really nice mix of roles: lab supervisors, instructors, teaching assistants. Getting all these different perspectives gives us a much richer, more complete picture of what's really happening.
The whole point of this was to cut through all the marketing hype and the noise. These researchers wanted to pinpoint the specific things about digital materials that genuinely grab a student's attention and get them to participate. In other words, what's real and what's just fluff.
Okay, so the first factor they looked at was assessment. And this is way more than just final exams. We're talking about how well the tech can evaluate learning on the fly. Does it have interactive quizzes? Does it give students useful feedback right away so they know where they stand? That's assessment.
Next up, content quality. Now this one seems like a no-brainer, right? Of course, the information has to be accurate and relevant and clear. Basically, is the stuff you're learning from actually good and designed in a way that makes sense?
And finally, there's reliability. Oh man, we've all been there. That simulation that crashes right in the middle of an experiment, or the website that's always down. This is all about the tech just working. Because let's be honest, if the tool is constantly breaking, nothing else even matters.
All right, so you've got these three big pieces: assessment, content, and reliability. But here's where the study gets really interesting. It turns out the link between these things and student engagement wasn't so direct. There was a missing piece of the puzzle, a kind of secret ingredient.
The big surprise was that just having amazing tools, even with great assessment and content and reliability, wasn't the whole story. Something else was connecting all the dots. And here it is. The secret sauce is technology integration. This is all about the how. It's the skill, the art of weaving these tools into the daily curriculum so they feel totally natural, not like some clunky add-on. It's making the tech an essential part of how you learn.
Okay, so this is where the data really starts to tell a story. The researchers crunched the numbers to see how all these pieces fit together to actually drive engagement. Let's break down what they found. First, let's look at the direct connections. The studies showed that, strong assessment tools and super reliable tech both directly boosted student engagement. Makes sense. But here's the shocker. Content quality all by itself had no direct impact. Just having good information wasn't enough to get students excited.
And that's the real turning point here. The power wasn't to end those direct lines. The real story is how technology integration acted like a supercharger, amplifying the effects of the other factors. So check out this pathway. When you take tools with great assessment and high reliability and you integrate them well into the teaching, boom, engagement goes way up. But look at content quality. Even when you tried to integrate it well, that path just wasn't supported by the data. The real 1-2 punch is well-integrated assessment and reliability.
Okay, so what does all this mean for the rest of us? For schools and teachers everywhere, not just in Jordan. Let's zoom out and look at the big practical lessons we can take from this. Here it is, the single most important takeaway. You can't just buy your way to an engaged classroom. Throwing a bunch of money at the fanciest software is pretty much guaranteed to fail if you don't have a smart, deliberate strategy for how you're actually going to use it.
So, based on what the study found, here's a simple game plan. Step 1. Build a solid foundation. Make sure your tech actually works. No bugs, no crashes. Step 2. Train your people. And not just on which buttons to push, but on the strategy of how to weave it into their lessons. And step 3. Before you buy anything, make sure it actually fits what you're trying to teach.
And you don't have to take my word for it. This quote from the study's author, Dr. Ayat Al-Mughrabi, says it all. The research is crystal clear. If you want digital tools to have an impact, you have to nail the integration. That's the key that unlocks everything else.
This study gives us a fantastic roadmap for the technology we have today. But as we all know, the digital world moves fast. And that brings us to one last question, looking toward the future.
With these mind-blowing tools like generative AI starting to show up in schools, that challenge of integration is getting even more complicated and way more important. It's not just about adding a new app anymore. It's about rethinking the whole curriculum, maybe even how we define learning itself. What does a classroom with well-integrated AI even look like? That's the next big question we all need to figure out.